Imagine this. You have 10 years of experience. You've never been fired. Your resume looks great. Former coworkers are willing to recommend you. You apply for 100 jobs, and nobody calls back. Not one interview, not one conversation, nothing. Now here's the question. What if the problem isn't your resume? What if it isn't your experience? What if the rules of getting hired changed and nobody told you? Because that's exactly what's happening right now. Millions of qualified people aren't struggling because they suddenly became less valuable. They're struggling because they're playing a game that no longer exists. Today, we're going to uncover what really happened to the job market, why companies seem impossible to get into, and why understanding these changes might become one of the most valuable skills of this decade. Joining me today is career strategist James Carter. James, has the job market actually become worse, or does it only feel that way?
I think that's the wrong question. The better question is, what changed? Because people keep saying the economy is bad. People blame inflation, artificial intelligence, remote work, politics. But those are only pieces of a much bigger picture. The truth is, the hiring process itself has quietly transformed over the last several years. Most people are still applying for jobs exactly the same way they did 10 years ago. The companies are not hiring the same way anymore. That's why so many people feel confused. They're following advice that used to work, inside a system that no longer exists.
So you're saying people aren't necessarily failing, they're simply using outdated rules?
Exactly. Imagine showing up to play a sport, only to discover halfway through the match that somebody changed the rules last night. That's today's job market. People keep trying harder, when what they actually need is to understand the new game.
Then let's start with what I think frustrates people the most. You spend hours applying. You meet every qualification. The position stays online for months, yet nobody gets hired. How is that even possible?
Because sometimes, they were never planning to hire anyone.
Wait, what?
They're commonly known as ghost jobs, positions that remain publicly listed, even though no immediate hiring is taking place. Now, that doesn't mean every open position is fake, far from it. But research has shown that some employers keep listings active for reasons that have nothing to do with filling the role today. Some companies are collecting resumes for future hiring. Others want to measure what kind of talent is available. Some are testing salary expectations. Sometimes the posting simply isn't removed after hiring is paused. And yes, sometimes companies want to appear as if they're growing. To a job seeker, every one of those listings looks completely real.
So someone could spend days applying to a position that nobody is actively trying to fill?
Absolutely. And imagine what that does psychologically. You think, my resume must be terrible. I'm clearly not good enough. My career is over. When in reality, there may never have been a hiring decision happening in the first place. That's one reason people feel like they're shouting into the void.
That actually explains something. Almost everyone knows someone who says, I've sent 200 applications, I've sent 300, I've sent 500, and they're still waiting.
Exactly. And here's where it becomes dangerous. When people don't understand the system, they blame themselves. Confidence drops, motivation disappears. They start believing they're the problem. But many times, the market itself has become dramatically less transparent. And that's only the beginning. Because even if the company genuinely wants to hire someone, there's another obstacle most applicants never even think about.
Which is?
The recruiter might never see your resume. Not because they rejected you, because a computer rejected you first.
Wait, you're telling me that after spending hours perfecting a resume, a human might never even open the file?
Exactly. And once people understand how that system works, everything about modern hiring suddenly starts making a lot more sense.
Hold on. A computer decides whether a human even gets to see my resume?
In many companies, yes. Before a recruiter reads a single application, software often sorts through hundreds, sometimes thousands, looking for candidates that match what the employer is searching for. Now, it's important to understand something. People often imagine some super intelligent AI making life-changing decisions. That's usually not what's happening. In many cases, the software is simply organizing applications, looking for relevant skills, job history, education, or specific qualifications the employer asked for. The recruiter still makes the hiring decision, but the software determines which applications reach that recruiter first.
So if someone sends the exact same resume to 50 companies, they're not entering the same competition 50 times. They're entering 50 completely different systems.
Exactly. Every company hires differently. Some review every application manually. Others rely heavily on applicant tracking systems. Large organizations often receive hundreds of applications within days. Without technology, sorting through all of them would be nearly impossible. That's why understanding how companies hire has become almost as important as the experience you actually have.
That changes everything, because people usually think, if nobody called me, I'm simply not good enough. But maybe their application never had a real chance to begin with.
That's right. And unfortunately, people respond in the worst possible way. They send even more applications. 100, 200, 500. They're increasing quantity without improving strategy. Imagine trying to unlock 50 different doors using the same key. Eventually, you don't blame the key, you blame yourself.
Let's talk about experience. For years, everyone heard the same advice. Work hard, gain experience, stay loyal, and opportunities will come. Does that advice still work?
Partly. Experience still matters. Companies absolutely value people who can solve problems. But experience is no longer the only thing separating candidates. Think about how quickly industries change today. New software appears every year. Artificial intelligence changes workflows. Remote teams operate across continents. Companies are asking different questions than they did 10 years ago. Instead of asking, "How long have you been doing this?" they're increasingly asking, "Can you adapt? Can you learn? Can you solve today's problems?" Experience remains valuable, but adaptability has become equally important.
So someone with 15 years of experience can lose to someone with 5?
Absolutely. Not because the younger candidate is automatically better, but because they may have skills that match today's needs more closely. Hiring isn't only about who has done the job the longest. It's about who is the best fit for the challenges the company expects next. That's a very different mindset.
And I think this is where artificial intelligence enters the conversation. People hear AI is taking jobs. Some say it's exaggerated. Others say it'll replace everyone. What's actually happening?
The truth is somewhere in the middle. Artificial intelligence is changing work, but it isn't replacing every profession overnight. What it's doing is automating specific tasks, and those tasks often belong to junior employees. Drafting simple reports, writing basic marketing copy, summarizing meetings, translating routine documents, answering repetitive customer questions, generating first versions of code. Many of these tasks can now be completed much faster with AI tools. That doesn't eliminate every job, but it changes what companies expect from new employees.
Because if AI already handles the simplest tasks, companies expect people to contribute at a higher level much sooner.
Exactly. Think about your first job. Many people learned by doing repetitive work. Over time, they became experts. If some of that repetitive work disappears, companies may hire fewer beginners, while expecting stronger practical skills from those they do hire. That's one of the biggest shifts we're seeing. Not the disappearance of work, but the evolution of what entry-level work looks like.
Which creates a difficult question. If companies expect experience, but beginner opportunities become more competitive, how does someone get started?
That's one of the biggest challenges facing today's workforce. And there isn't one universal answer. Some people build portfolios, others freelance, some contribute to open-source projects, others create content that demonstrates expertise. The important point is this. Employers increasingly want evidence that you can do the work, not only claims that you can. And that's changing career paths across almost every industry.
So far, we've talked about technology. We've talked about hiring systems. We've talked about AI. But there's another change people feel every day, even if they don't realize it. They're no longer competing only with people living nearby. They're competing with the entire world. And I think that's where the job market changed forever.
You're absolutely right. For most of modern history, your biggest competition lived in the same city, maybe the same state, sometimes the same country. Today, that's no longer true. Remote work changed that forever. A company in New York can interview someone in Texas, London, Warsaw, or Sao Paulo, all in the same afternoon. For employers, That creates a much larger talent pool. For workers, it creates much more competition.
Which means people aren't just competing against their neighbors anymore. They're competing against the best candidate the company can find. Anywhere.
Exactly. And that's one reason the hiring process feels so much harder. Not because you're less talented, but because the number of qualified candidates has grown dramatically. A software engineer in one country, a designer in another, a marketer somewhere else, can all apply for the same position within minutes. Technology removed many geographical barriers. That's an incredible opportunity, but it's also a much more competitive environment.
That probably explains another question people ask all the time. If unemployment isn't extremely high, why does finding a job feel so difficult?
Because those are two different things. A healthy labor market doesn't guarantee an easy hiring process. Companies may still be hiring, but they can also afford to be more selective. When employers receive hundreds of qualified applications, they don't have to make quick decisions. They can wait, compare, interview more people, raise expectations. That's why many candidates feel stuck, not because jobs don't exist, but because competition for desirable positions has become much more intense.
Let's talk about education. For decades, people were told, go to college, get a degree, work hard, and you'll have a secure future. Does that promise still exist?
Education is still incredibly valuable. Let's make that clear. Knowledge matters, universities matter, professional training matters. But a degree alone is no longer enough. Companies increasingly want proof. Can you solve problems? Can you communicate? Can you collaborate? Can you learn quickly? Can you adapt when technology changes? Those questions often matter just as much as the diploma itself.
So the degree became the starting point, not the finish line.
Exactly. Think of it like getting a driver's license. Having one allows you to drive. It doesn't automatically make you a great driver. The same applies to many careers. A degree opens doors, but what keeps those doors open is your ability to create value.
I think that's something many people needed to hear, because it's easy to believe. I did everything society asked me to do. I studied. I worked hard. So why does everything suddenly feel different?
Because the world changed faster than expectations did. Parents often give career advice based on the market they entered. Teachers prepare students using systems designed years earlier. Many books describe hiring processes that looked very different a decade ago. None of that advice was necessarily wrong. It simply belongs to a different era. The workplace evolves continuously. The people who succeed tend to evolve with it.
Let's imagine someone watching this right now. They've applied everywhere. They're frustrated. They're starting to doubt themselves. What's the first thing you would tell them?
First, don't confuse rejection with your worth. Hiring decisions are influenced by dozens of factors you never see. Budgets change. Projects get canceled. Internal candidates appear. Hiring freezes happen. Job descriptions evolve. Sometimes another applicant simply fits that specific role better. Rejection is information. It isn't your identity. Second, stop measuring success by the number of applications you send. Measure it by the quality of your preparation. Are you learning new skills, improving your portfolio, building relationships, expanding your network, understanding what employers actually need? Those investments continue paying off long after one application is rejected. Third, accept that continuous learning is no longer optional. It doesn't matter whether you're an accountant, a nurse, an engineer, or a filmmaker. Every profession is changing. The people who keep learning keep creating opportunities for themselves.
So maybe the biggest mistake isn't that people work too little. Maybe it's that they prepare for yesterday's market instead of tomorrow's.
I think that's exactly right. The future doesn't reward people simply because they've been around the longest. It rewards people who remain curious, who stay adaptable, who continue developing skills, even after they already have a job. Those habits matter more today than ever before.
I have one final question. Do you believe the job market is broken?
No, I think it's changing. And change always creates uncertainty. Every technological revolution, every industrial revolution, every major economic shift created fear before it created opportunity. This moment is no different. Some jobs will disappear, new jobs will emerge. Some careers will shrink, others haven't even been invented yet. The challenge isn't predicting every change. The challenge is becoming the kind of person who can adapt to change. That's always been valuable. Today, it's essential.
I think that's the most important takeaway from today's conversation. The job market didn't suddenly turn against you. It evolved. The rules changed. Technology changed. Competition changed. Expectations changed. And while that may sound intimidating, it also means something incredibly hopeful. You can change too. Understanding the new rules is the first step towards succeeding in them. James, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching. If this conversation changed the way you think about today's job market, share it with someone who's searching for answers, because understanding what's happening might be the advantage people have been looking for all along. We'll see you in the next one.